lovelies. How are you? So good to see you. I hope you're having a wonderful day. So my first inclination when that happens is to be like, who are you talking to? Who the F are you talking to? Like, that's in my mind, that's what the Southside girl wants to say. But I hang back a minute and I'm like, this is my job. And not to say that I'm not very grateful to have the job that I have. I worked to have that job and got education and training and everything to do this job. So I do care about the job. But I don't have the need to prove myself to this person. Like, so I had to have a conversation with my ego in that moment. Like, don't even say nothing. Like, and not to say you shouldn't have a voice when it's necessary, but a lot of things you have to kind of weigh. Like, I could go back and forth with him, but what would be the benefit to me, or why would I do it? Like, why would I give him the satisfaction of thinking that he is impacting me? Because really, essentially, he's not impacting me because he said what he said. And I could let it bother me, but in my mind, I'm thinking like, these people are paying me six figures. And I don't answer to this person. He can say and do whatever he wants to do. It doesn't change my outcome. It doesn't impact me to the degree that he may feel it should. Like, and I think once I do that, I can come with an answer that, or a response that is my higher self. It's my Coco. You know, Coco is my inner being. And Coco can respond. And a lot of times I can then look at it from their perspective. Like, oh, you're stressed because you need to get A, B, C, and D done. And it's looking like time is getting tight. So this is something that you feel should be urgent to me as well, so you can get done what you're trying to get done. So it's not about me, actually. It's about you. And I'm just being projected upon. And it only has the power, that projection only has the power that I give it. So I'm not going to give it any power. So these are conversations that I'm having with myself. And of course, it's long and dragged out now. When we're in the course of a meeting, it's probably like 30 or 40 seconds where I'm just like, I'm gonna let him have that. We'll come back to that later. And sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I do have a snappy response like, oh, we'll get your secretary on that or something like that. But I mean, you know, it's a growth moment, but I will say definitely I have grown leaps and bounds in this area because I used to just go with what my ego said to do. And I have definitely, this is at least 10 years ago for sure. I'm going to be honest. It's not been any time recently that I can recall. So if it is, forgive me. I don't recall it. But there used to be times in meetings where literally I would say like, who are you talking to? Or stop playing with me. Like I would get a little, like it would be problematic because my ego would feel threatened to the point where I had to buck up so that I wouldn't be like accosted. But this is the thing with the ego. It's always in survival mode. But in truth, is really anything happening in, at least in an office job, that is detrimental to you in that moment? Like there's no lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. Like there's nothing really that is about to just like happen in that moment that is a threat enough that you have to be on the ready. You know what I mean? Like that's not happening in work life. You know what I mean? So think about that in terms of when you're talking to your ego. Like, yeah, that dude is a jerk and he probably is a misogynist and he looks down on me as a woman and especially a black woman and all that kind of stuff. And so what? Like that's his truth. It's not my truth unless I take that on. And so I have to tell my ego, like, it's not impacting us. It's not impacting us. Should it? then we can address it at that point. Or we can just, I know my ego is taking record. So of course the same person is probably not going to be able to keep trying it because my ego has been like, this is like time number 3 or 4. He's getting spicy in your meeting. And so I would probably address it differently. But in real reality, I noticed that when I don't give the response that the person has essentially triggered, I don't really have those issues with them anymore. When I go toe to toe with them, it's like now we're always adversaries. Now we're always going toe to toe. So I just try to bring my best self to the table. And then whatever someone else is doing, that's on them. That's up to them. So I said I would give you a kind of light one. I feel like that was a light one, but sorry, it's, the window is open. This bug's flying. But I'm going to give you one that's a little heavier. So I think I have mentioned that I do deal with and am dealing with in the healing process of a lot of childhood wounds that I had around abandonment because my mother did a lot of prison time, and my father essentially raised me, but he had his own demons that he dealt with. So there were like a lot of times where I felt as a child abandoned, alone, and these are wounds that I still have triggered today that I have to deal with. And my ego is always kind of bringing those things up. So I'm going to give you one that I'm bearing my soul here, but it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Because the truth is just the truth. It's the isness of what it is. So I'm not going to be ashamed of that. So one thing that I used to really do all the time was every time that my person that I was seeing or married to or dating, if I couldn't get in contact with them, it drove me crazy because I literally, in my mind, my ego would be telling me like, they're gone forever. They're never coming back. Like, this is the thoughts that are being inundated in my mind. So I had to start talking to my ego and letting my ego know, like, that's not really the reality. Like, this person always comes back. Like, you might go some hours or maybe a day without speaking to the person, and then you find out, oh, it was this or it was that or something. You know, something came up that needed to be addressed within their experience that had nothing to do with me. Or maybe they were mad at me about something else. Like, that's neither here nor there. The actual what was happening on their part is not the here nor there. It is the story that my ego was telling me about this. So my ego was giving me all kinds of stories of unworthiness and you're all alone and all of these kind of stuff. They're never coming back. And I had to start to just hit my ego with the truth. Like, this person always comes back. Like, this, even to the point where now when my ego comes to me with like crazy stuff, I will say like, that could be true. That's a possibility. But so is the other side of the coin. Because one thing my daddy always said was, there's nothing sliced so thin that it doesn't have two sides. So I will try to get to neutral with it, or just embrace, like, I know that that's scary to think of losing this person that you love and care for so much. But you will be okay. And you will have all the memories of the times that you spent. And it doesn't change your value or worth. You're still a beautiful woman. You still have all the components that you can be in another loving relationship, and you can be grateful for the time that you have with that person. So when I have those kind of internal talks with my ego, it calms my ego down, and that little fire that your ego wants to fight, it kind of is like, okay, it's cool. Okay. And then I can go about what is really the important things of life. Because here's the bottom line. Your ego will spend so much time giving you a laundry list of all the things that this external person or thing need to change in order for them to be doing right by you. Your ego will get, when I tell you goo gobs of items and lists and feelings of whatever negative emotion comes with what you deal with, your ego will do that all day long. Like, that's what it's here for. That's what it does. Like, it does that. So you have to kind of stop it in its tracks and look at it holistically, because then you'll be able to really respond from what it is that really needs to be addressed. And generally, the thing that needs to be addressed is within us. The thing that needs to be addressed is something that no one else can ever fix. Because if they do all the things on your list, that if they do A, B, C, and D, then I'll be good. They'll do A, B, C, D, E, and F. And then you're going to come up with G, H, I, J, and K that needs to happen. I have experienced this from the inside and from the outside, where someone was like, if you do A, B, C, and D, I'm not going to have no problems. I did A, B, C, D, and E, and they were like, now you need to do da-da-da-da-da. And I've done that to people as well. So that is how the ego works. But in actuality, it's really going a little deeper, because I had to start identifying in that moment what it really was about, because it's never really about the external thing that's happening. That's just what you can ease. That would just be the path of least resistance to focus on, because it's true. Like, if someone is an asshole or they did something effed up to you, that's still true. I'm not saying that just because you won't react to it, that, or you won't blame them for how you feel, doesn't mean what they did wasn't shitty. Like, people do shitty stuff. We're humans. I've done shitty stuff to people. I'm sure many of us have. We do it and they do it, and it's the cycle of life, you know? But at any rate, then you say to yourself, like, I have to now say to myself, like, oh, this is that abandonment stuff. And we're okay. Like, we're okay. Like, we're not abandoned. In actuality, no one ever left. Even my mother, who I feel like was the source of how I got to those abandonment issues, she didn't leave me. Like, she had her own story of why she wasn't able to care for her children. She had her own story of things that were impacting her that had nothing to do with me and my value and worth, and the stories that I made it about for myself as a child of why these things looked like this when I was a kid. And then I brought them into my teens and my 20s and my 30s. And now in my 40s, I'm trying to like really heal it. But those are the things that I have to be honest with myself. Like, this isn't about that this dude didn't answer the phone, or this isn't about that my friends didn't invite me to go to this or that or the other. This is about that little girl, my ego, the meaning well child, feeling like, oh, it's going to be this again. Oh, it's going to be this again. But you're entitled. You're super entitled to stop living secondhand experiences. Let this moment unfold as what it is. And then you will be able to see, like, oh, the ego is meaning well. It's the healing intake professional. It's showing me what I need to heal. But the actuality is there's no threat or harm happening to me now. You see what I'm saying? So you can give the ego everything it needs in this here and now, so that it kind of can calm down and it will not take you on a route that you don't really want to go in from your true self. You know what I mean? Yes. So that's the ego in a nutshell. We'll talk more about it. And I know this may ruffle some feathers. Feel free to comment below or send me a DM if you have questions, concerns, comments about the ego. You know what I'm going to ask you to do, because I always do the same thing every time. And that is, until I see you again, live, love, and thrive. Mwah.